welcome to Across the Fence. I'm Jolie Whitney. Today we're talking about a serious but important topic, preventing child abuse. 2024 commemorates the 45th anniversary of Prevent Child Abuse Vermont, a statewide nonprofit organization promoting and supporting healthy relationships within families, schools, and communities to eliminate child abuse. Joining me to talk about the mission, goals, and programs of PCAVT is Anne Shangraw, the Director of Prevent Child Abuse Vermont's programs for preventing shaken baby syndrome, abusive head trauma. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
And Anne, you brought a couple props, and we'll get into these a little bit later. But first, can you tell me about the 3 different programs that Prevent Child Abuse provides?
Sure. We have the one that we'll be talking about, which is has been over the years known as Shaken Baby Syndrome Prevention Program, but as of recently we call it Safe Environments for Infants and Toddlers because we have more topics that we cover. The other 2 programs are Child Sexual Abuse Prevention and Family Support.
Okay, do you mind diving a little bit into what either of those entail? What's family support?
Family support are actually parenting classes that are offered to all different types of audiences. We have classes for high-risk parents. We have classes that are held inside our correction centers. So really any place there's an audience, people that reach out and need help with parenting. Okay. The other program talks about all different walks of life being able to help prevent sexual child abuse. And as of recently actually covers trafficking as well.
And now let's get into what your focus is a little bit more, which is the Shaken Baby Syndrome program. And there's a statistic that you wanted to share. We should note that there hasn't been a fatality in Vermont due to Shaken Baby Syndrome since 2015. So that's an incredible milestone.
Yes, it is, especially considering that when this program started a little over 20 years ago, we were seeing anywhere from 8 to 12 cases a year.
Wow.
Not all fatal, but still cases. So yeah, we're pretty proud of that number, yes.
And can you tell me what that program entails?
Well, we actually go out and talk about what this abuse is and different ways of preventing it. Many people assume that anybody that could shake a child is the kind of that monster that we visualize, when actually it's really a matter of self-care and stress management, because as any parent knows, it's the most stressful time of your life, most rewarding, but also the most stressful. So that's what we talk about. And I just ask people to keep an open mind that there are different things that we can do to prevent this, which is sometimes just as simple as lending a helping hand with a new parent that might be overly stressed.
Sure, and what are some of those stress management tips that you offer?
Yeah, we always tell people, when I do a class, I have 3 steps. The first step is to, of course, take care of a baby's basic needs, because the number one trigger for shaking is actually crying. A baby crying and the caregiver can't get them to stop. So covering their basic needs and trying to soothe them with any technique they're aware of. And then if that doesn't work, we tell them to check from head to toe for signs of sickness or discomfort. And then lastly, set them down and walk away. Take a break, don't shake, is what we kind of sum it up with. But letting people know that it is okay to let a baby cry, that you shouldn't feel that you're inadequate or think that there's anything wrong with the child. It's just how they communicate.
And you mentioned before the taping that sometimes people will shake a baby more than once.
Yes.
As a result of, you said the baby stops crying sometimes?
Yes. If you shake a child, because their brain is so underdeveloped, they are likely to get a mild concussion, which will make them go lethargic and stop crying. So for an individual that has no experience caring for an infant or knows anything about child development, they could think that worked. And that's where not only they get shaken once, but many children get shaken more than once over a period of time because of that fact, that they will stop crying.
A very sad fact.
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And you brought some props with you today, as everyone can see.
Yes.
Can you tell me what these are?
Yes, well, this is, we call her Rose. She is made specifically for this training program. And as you can see, her brain is labeled. So what she does, do you want me to go ahead and turn her on?
Sure.
What she'll do is she'll start crying. And then I will usually ask for volunteers to help me with these demonstrations. So a volunteer will come up, I'll have her crying, and usually you can see the body language in the room change, just even with a mechanical doll. There are many people that get triggered very quickly hearing that. But I will have the volunteer then shake her as if they've become overly stressed and snap, and she will stop crying and the brain will light up to show us the areas affected. So I'll just do it really quickly for you. Is she going to cooperate? There she goes. So then I'll just ask the volunteer to imagine becoming stressed. Stop it! I know, it's quite shocking. But as you can see, her brain has lit up. And that's the common areas actually, which the brain is forced to move on an arc, as my hand is. So we've talked about the frontal lobe. We're talking about the frontal lobe being damaged, and also the eyesight possibly damaged. But most importantly, she stopped crying, which for that underexperienced caregiver, it worked.
Yeah. Okay. And this is a little bit more right down to it. But of course, this is a Jello brain that we have here. Can you tell me what this demonstrates?
Sure. Well, the main ingredient is Jello. However, it is made with a special recipe that makes it as firm as an adult brain. And the reason it's made to be similar to an adult brain is because we can't mold anything as soft as an infant's brain.
Oh, okay.
So I will then ask, again, a volunteer to...
And bear in mind, this might be a little bit visceral to see.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. And it's what most people remember. So I will ask them to do some movements as it's a child, burp it, and you can see the brain isn't moving at all.
Sure.
But how would you like to do it?
No.
Okay.
Thank you, though.
So we'll just do some normal movements, and you can see that there's no change other than the movement. And then again, just like the baby, we'll shake it. And you can see that there's some damage done.
Okay.
And these represent areas of the brain that have been damaged and will eventually be reabsorbed by the body and gone forever. So that's the risk we take.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And a very clear way of kind of demonstrating that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is only one of the programs that you folks do. Can you tell me about Safe Sleep?
Safe Sleep, yes. That's actually become a much hotter topic, if you will, across the country, because even with all the education that we offer, that we didn't have before, we're still seeing increase in numbers of deaths. In fact, in Vermont, we used to have an average of anywhere from, usually about 6 deaths a year due to unsafe sleep. In the last couple of years, it's been increasing to 9. So when I teach about infant safe sleep, it's a nice segue from walking away from the child. When we walk away from that child, we need to make sure we follow safe sleep recommendations. So I teach the ABCDs of safe sleep. Again, very easy to remember. So A is for alone. Babies should always be in their sleep space alone. B is for back. So I emphasize when we talk about back that anybody with a child, leaving them with maybe somebody that hasn't been caring for a child recently or hasn't for years, to make sure that they know that, because that has changed over the years. That recommendation from the American Academy of Pediatrics has changed. So for instance, if I weren't in this line of work when I had grandchildren, I wouldn't have known that it wasn't on their stomach anymore, but it is currently on their back. So B is for back. C is for crib, free of soft objects. And it doesn't have to be a crib. It can be any other piece of furniture made for a baby to sleep in. And then D is for drug-free environment. And in that situation, when we use the word drug, that can be natural, prescribed, legal, illegal, over-the-counter, anything that's going to affect our ability to be alert and be able to be woken up if we need to be.
And you mentioned this is an ABCD program, and
Yes.
A was alone. So
Yes.
let's focus on that for a second.
Yeah.
It seems almost instinctual to want to sleep with your baby. Why shouldn't we?
Absolutely. Many people do, and even after hearing of the dangers. So what we need to do with that person or that family is to have a conversation with them, of course, making them aware of the risk, but then realizing that, as you said, many people are still going to do it. So we need to make sure that we have the conversation and maybe brainstorm with them about how we can make it as safe as possible. And that might be something as simple as limiting the bedding, making sure the pillows are away from the child. Maybe even using a co-sleeper in the center of the bed. So you still have that contact, but the walls are there so you don't roll over onto the child. So there are many different ways that we can address that.
And for people maybe coming from a different background, are there different cultural ways of sleeping?
Yeah.
And do you have to change how you teach for those?
Absolutely. The big thing is just in every audience that I teach, I try to be very aware to make that notation. If you are from a culture that believes in a family bed, there are ways that we can keep that safe. And it's kind of the same conversation that I just mentioned, talking about keeping the amount of bedding down, making sure that the mattress isn't too safe, which, of course, would include a waterbed, which aren't so popular in today's world, but, it wasn't that long ago that everybody had a waterbed, and that would be very, very dangerous for an infant to be on.
And is there any key thing that you'd like someone to take away from the safe sleep conversation?
Yes. Share the room, not the bed.
So stay with your baby in a
Yes,
room, but
yes.
maybe your own personal space for that?
Yes, right, exactly.
And you hold trainings all over the state. Where do you hold them?
Yeah, I do about 200 trainings a year, and I cover the entire state. I spend, during the school year, I'm usually in high schools, which actually is my favorite audience. I love working with the teenagers, and they love doing our demonstrations with me. So they really take it away. I feel they are the audience that remembers it the most, especially the Jello brain. So
I don't think I'll forget that anytime soon.
Right.
Yeah.
In addition to schools, I also have a relationship with all the hospitals throughout the state. I give them literature to provide to their patients upon discharge, and we do trainings for them. We, during COVID, we had the time to get accredited through the Secretary of State, so we offer continued education credits for, I think it's 14 different professional groups, and we go into corrections. Of course, that was interrupted with COVID, but we're just now getting back into the correction centers. And so any place there's an audience.
All right, and we're almost out of time, but I quickly want to mention all of the negative outcomes we've talked about. Yeah. They're all preventable.
Absolutely.
Can you talk about why that education is so important?
Well, there's a lot of different reasons, but I do feel, and this is more of a personal thought, but I do feel that our families are just getting smaller. It wasn't very long ago when everybody had a bunch of siblings around and a bunch of cousins, and it was family Sundays, and everybody helped care for young children. With our younger families and smaller families, we're just not seeing that experience for young people growing up. So I think it's really important that we offer as much as we can to that captive audience of students. So that's my personal goal, is to get in every high school in the state.
Absolutely, and that's all we have time for, but thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
And to reach out to Anne about safe sleep, training, or any of the other topics we've discussed today, the information to contact Prevent Child Abuse is on the screen. That takes care of another visit across the fence. My thanks to the crew here at WCAX for all their help with today's program. I'm Julie Whitney. Have a good one.